Do y'all think that the better team won, or was this just a bad game?
They got a cloud hanging over their head.
You execute when you're supposed to execute, and we didn't do that. They were the better team in that game.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to the most demure and mindful SEC football podcast that's out there.
I literally have no idea where that comes from. Like, it's everywhere, and I don't get it.
It's the internet. It's a weird
one of the
place.
trending. Yeah. It's And welcome to the show. We have a real treat for you lined up. We're going to talk to a Texas fan, get their thoughts on Texas entering the SEC. Give us a little bit of history on Texas and their traditions and all that good stuff. So we're excited to get into that. But first, as we kind of dive into the season, as you know, we just talked about earlier, how quickly the season is coming up, and the rubber's going to meet the road very quickly. So with that in mind, let's talk about some key players for the SEC teams, and we'll keep it to two players, one per team. We'll pick two teams to talk about. I was going to talk about all the teams, and Matt was like, ain't nobody got time for that. So
Dude, there's too many teams in the conference now. We really can't.
It would have had to have been a speed round, like a true speed round. It's just boom, boom, boom. So let's take a little bit of time. We'll do two, and I think I'll go first. So the headline is, what two players in the SEC will be crucial for the success of their team in the 2024 season? So the two that I've picked are, first of all, let's go with Brock Vandegrift. So obviously he is a highly anticipated transfer up at Kentucky. I think there's a lot of optimism swirling around him coming on the scene there. And there's a lot of questions there in Lexington. And so I think a lot of people are looking to him. They're like, you're this highly recruited player. We landed you. Now what's going to happen? So we'll kind of see what happens there. He did great in the situations he came in with Georgia, but obviously this is his show. It's going to be his to win or lose, I suppose, up there. So excited to see. I do hope that good things happen for him. Obviously, not when they play Georgia, but otherwise, hoping for good things from him.
If he does well and really just pops off, all the Georgia fans are gonna be like, "How could we let him go?"
Yeah. It's just hard to argue with the situation now. Maybe past scenarios where we've had, which is, in retrospect, we could do a whole podcast on that, the quarterback controversies at Georgia and the history over the years. But
ain't nobody got time for that, as Matt would say.
No, ain't nobody got time for all that.
So yeah, we'll see.
It is going to be interesting to see how he fits into that system in Kentucky. I'm trying to remember who is Kentucky's top receiving threat. Can y'all think of who that is right now?
I'm
racking the brain here, and
so it looks like they're hoping for big things out of Dane Key at wide receiver, but that's really the main name that's been has been mentioned, and also DeMonte Chip Trey. I'm going to mispronounce this, Trayanum at running back. So
okay.
So there is another one. So Dane Key is one, no pun intended there. But Berrien Brown is another wide receiver. So to your question, looks like Berrien Brown and Dane Key are going to be who they're looking there.
Best of luck to them.
Yeah, so we'll see how that system works out. They have a new offensive coordinator in Bush Hamden from Boise State. So we'll see how that goes. A lot of turnover there. And then the second player that I picked was Raheem Rocket Sanders, because he's coming into South Carolina. A lot of things to replace there at South Carolina. I believe that a lot of pressure is going to be put on that running back position because they've got a redshirt freshman, Lenoris Sellers, as the starting quarterback, is what Beamer's gone with. And they do have other options, and they, if y'all recall, Robbie Ashford from Auburn and redshirt senior Luke Doty is there as well. But My point is that there's going to be a lot of pressure, I think, on the running back position because they're going to really need that running game to free up things on the offensive side of the ball. Because I think if they're counting on the quarterback, they may kind of be in trouble in that scenario. So that's the two I got. I think you're going to see the success of Kentucky and South Carolina kind of pivot around those two key players. Jesse, what players did you pick?
Yeah, I was going to pick a Bama player, but then I thought people would get annoyed with me. So I went a little bit different. I went against my first thought. My first one that I wanted to talk about was Jackson Dart, who's obviously the quarterback at Ole Miss. We talked in a previous show on how Ole Miss could really make a go through the SEC if they get the right players in place, if they really boost their defense. But Lane Kiffin has shown that he can be very competitive at Ole Miss. And with Jackson Dart coming back for, a season that he didn't have to come back for, I think it's going to be really telling. He's going to have to show a lot of leadership at the quarterback position. He's already done pretty well, from 2022 into 2023, making his interception percentage go down. He seems to be more decisive, and like he's not just thinking in the moment and deciding to do something. He's going in there, he's making reads. He seems like he's grown and is being a more intelligent player. And I think for Ole Miss to actually make a splash in the SEC, we've got an expanded playoff, we've got more teams in the conference, we no longer have divisions. They're really going to have to rely on Jackson Dart to lead this team to victory. And I read an interesting stat. So Ole Miss has not reached a conference title game since its advent in 1992. They did share the win with the SEC West champion. They did share a win of the SEC West championship in 2003, but they didn't get to go to Atlanta because they lost the tiebreaker to LSU. So their last conference championship came in 1963 under head coach Johnny Vaught. So there's been a little bit of a drought in Oxford, and I think in order to get past that, they're going to have to rely on Jackson Dart. Obviously, they're going to have to rely a lot on Lane Kiffin and making sure that defense gets going. But a great defense is a good offense, right? So that's my first one there. And then you mentioned Rocket Sanders. I kind of did a 2-for-1 in mine. I said Lenora Sellers, who was named, probably earlier today, I think, as the starting quarterback for South Carolina. And there's some shoes to fill. We talked a lot about Spencer Rattler. He was kind of their guy and kind of the whole team for the most part in big situations. So with him gone, they're really going to need somebody to get this program moving forward, because it seems like it's feast or famine in South Carolina. It seems like they're beating teams and everyone's like, yeah, we can do this. And then all of a sudden it's like back to nothing. And I think in order to get this program moving forward, they're going to have leadership at quarterback, which seemed like something that Spencer Rattler was really pushing and really able to achieve. And I think Shane Beamer's going to have a standout performance from him to help his seat not get a little warm. And as you mentioned, Wes, there's a lot of guys vying for that job there. There are options at South Carolina. So in order to keep your starting position as QB1, you're really going to have to be a standout. And it's his first year in the SEC for Sellers. So it should be interesting to see how he comes in as an SEC quarterback, how he comes into a program that needs a boost and steps into shoes that are pretty big to fill with Spencer Rattler.
Agreed. Matt, who you got?
Well, first off, I just want to say there's a lot of question marks around South Carolina this season, and I want to put a pin in that because we're going to come back to it in our next segment. But for me, I my very first thing, and I didn't care. I didn't think about it like Jesse did. I don't care if anybody gets annoyed with me. Most people are going to be annoyed with me anyway. The big thing, and I didn't put it strictly on one player, but instead I went kind of homerish and went Tennessee secondary. Tennessee is going to have a potent offense this season. The offensive side, I don't think a lot of people are worried. I think we can probably go And notice I said we. Those of you that were in the comments last week, I can say we.
They're still in the
Um,
comments. They're still
they're
commenting
and
on
they
that
can
video.
stay in the comments for all I care. I'm going to say we. Tennessee's offense is going to be very potent. The word I like to use is prolific. We know this. Tennessee's defensive line. This is probably the most talented defensive line unit that they've had at Tennessee since Josh Heupel took over. James Pierce is like number 2 or 3 top draft pick. There's talking maybe the number 1 draft pick going into next spring. Defensive line's going to be fine. Linebacker play is going to be good. The real question is, what is the secondary going to look like? And I think that's what a lot of people have questions about. And Willie Martinez, the secondary coach for Tennessee, went to the well. He picked up a couple of different transfers. Jermod McCoy out of Oregon State, Jalen McMurray out of Temple, and Jacoby Thomas out of Middle Tennessee are a couple of names that have been added. There's a couple other guys. Ricky Gibson's still hanging around. And it's just that's the part of the Tennessee team that we're not real sure what it's going to look like. And I think there's a lot of people that are very curious because I feel like if you could put points up, you got to get a couple stops. We saw it work a couple years ago in 22 when Tennessee won 10, 11 games, however many games it was that season. They put points up, and the defense got just enough stops to make it happen. And I really feel like the secondary is going to be, if you're going to pick a weak spot on the defense, it's probably going to be that. The other thing player I'm gonna pick that I feel, Wes, did you have a question?
Matt, not to rain on your parade, but you mentioned Willie Martinez, and do you recall which team he was the defensive coordinator for?
It was for Georgia for a while, right?
He was the defensive coordinator at Georgia in the late 2000s,
Yeah.
and he was probably my least favorite defensive coordinator. While because simply the simple fact that he did not believe in blitzing, it was crazy. It was like we're like, look, we are not getting any pressure on the quarterback. We have to get pressure, and he just refused. Now I understand it's a little bit different being a secondaries coach, but that was my experience with Willie Martinez as a fan.
Right.
So,
Another name I meant to mention and forgot to mention is freshman Boo Carter, who's come on late, and he's made a lot of noise in fall camp. There's been a lot of talk with his name and Eric Berry's name in the same sentence. I don't know if we're really prepared to commit to that he's as good as Eric Berry, but there's been a lot. It's funny you mentioned that about Martinez because apparently he's good in the secondary, good in that coverage, but he also walks up a lot too. And he's pretty effective at stopping the run. So we'll see how that pans out. The other player that I really feel like, and this is a big one for me, I really feel that Quinn Ewers has got to have a solid season. A lot of people had good things to say about Quinn Ewers last season. He had a good season, but there's a part of the Texas offense that's kind of missing, and that's running back play. Just in the last couple of weeks, RB1, hold on, I lost the name. Where did it go? RB1, CJ Baxter went down to an injury, and
yeah.
RB2, Jaden Blue, also went down to an injury, which just leaves sophomore Quintravian Weisner and 2 freshmen behind him at QB3, RB3, RB4, RB5. And it's just, I'm wondering what that's going to look like because we know football in the SEC, you got to be multidimensional. You can't really get by just being able to throw the ball because then people can just go in a dime set, throw 13 cornerbacks out there and wait for you to make mistakes because it's going to happen. You got to be able to run the ball too, and losing RB1 and RB2 right before we get cranked up is concerning. And I know that we're going to talk to our Texas friend in just a second, but you have to kind of wonder what is that going to look like for Texas's offense? Are they going to be able to stay away from being one-dimensional? I'm sure that the guys that they got on the roster are good players. They wouldn't be playing at Texas if they weren't. But it is going to be interesting to see what that looks like going forward.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, once you start getting into the high numbers of the depth chart, that's never a good sign. So
And
further
how
down.
unfortunate for Texas, because Texas is the media darling right now to finish second
Yeah,
in the SEC.
right.
And to lose your starting running back a couple weeks before we crank up is just
And you
it's
want
a
to have
bad.
you want to throw different looks at running back as well, lightning, thunder, whatever you want to bring, just so the defense doesn't know what's coming at
Hmm.
them, and you're definitely more limited in that regard. Yeah, we'll see. Um, okay, so interesting to watch those stories and see how that evolves as the season progresses and how these players will affect their teams. Next, let's talk about which coaches are on the hot seat. In my
We haven't
mind,
even cranked up the season yet. We're already talking about
I
firing
know.
coaches.
In my
I
mind, I've
love it.
got a couple in mind, but I want to hear what y'all are thinking first. What do y'all got?
I'll defer to the lady.
Oh, I think there's a lot.
Okay.
Um,
There's a lot.
I
Ooh.
mean, I do. I'm gonna list them and then we can like then we can say things. Unfortunately, it pains me. It really truly pains me. Sam Pittman, he's in the
Mhm.
hot.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but those coals on the barbecue, they're getting a little
Kind of
toast.
fading embers, as it were.
He's
So,
and just so we're all clear on this, I looked up records real quick for a couple of these because I picked Pittman as one of mine too. And Sam Pittman's record at Arkansas right now is 23-25.
Oh, woof.
It's not a good look. Not a
yeah,
Not a
good
good
look.
look. Not a good look. Um, Billy Napier, God bless. Blah.
yeah.
It's not great. Things are
No,
not great down in the swamp. And that's, the field, it's not going well. The recruiting is not going well.
the
There's
recruiting's a hot mess, and there's lawsuits and stuff. So
I was
yeah,
gonna say,
that's
and there's lawsuits.
ooh.
Yeah.
So th- that's just bad. That's just what did we call it? That's just dog water. That is dog water. Um,
It's
down
not even
there.
Midland. We've moved
It's
to
not
dog
even
water.
Midland. It's just
But
dog water.
by the way, the numbers for Sunshine Billy is 11-14,
Yeah.
You hate to
and
see
he's
it.
making $7 million a year.
We
So
talked
I
about
don't
that
think we're
the
getting a good ROI on that one.
the
Not a good.
history of that, and if he has another losing season, you're going to have to go back to the 1940s to have that kind of record.
Yeah, it's pretty rough.
So,
It's just bad. I also think Shane Beamer's seat is getting a little warm. I think
okay.
Carolina has won some games that gave their fan base and their boosters a taste of success, which only leads to high expectations, which leads to low patience threshold. So I think this is going to be a really big season for him. And I would say this isn't a hot seat per se, but I would say all eyes are here. I'm going to say Kalen DeBoer just because there's a lot of expectations and there is such a fall that could happen with this program that the Bama faithful, we are not a patient people. Okay. Um, for good or for worse, we're not a patient people. So I think expectations are extraordinarily high. And to be in his position, it's not one I would want to be in. So not necessarily a hot seat, but just like a all eyes on you. And then a sort of, I'm going to call it like just like a cozy seat. It's cozy because it's a little warm, but it's not like, it's not great. It could get hotter. Like you've sat in your heated seat, you've put it on low.
Uh-huh.
There are more levels you could go. Anyways,
Like if the wind current in the room changed, you would feel hot.
yes,
Yeah, I get it.
yes.
I know. I'm
Um,
picking up what you're putting down, Jesse.
I'm gonna say Hugh Freeze,
Oh, that's a
Oh,
pick.
that's
and
true. They did have
say that
a few bad losses.
I say that not because I hate Auburn. I do, but I don't say it because of that. I say it because we know that the Auburn patience doesn't exist. It just doesn't. We know that the pockets exist when the patience is low. And I think with Freeze, because he has been in the SEC, there was a lot of hype around his name, and there was a lot of hype around the hire. That again, high expectations and a low patience threshold. He's going to have to make a splash this year.
Yeah. And let's not forget. So I don't know. The New Mexico State loss is really what's putting that pressure, I think, on Freeze more
Absolutely.
than anything.
Hey, but
Um,
hold on now. Saban lost to Troy State his first season at Bama, did he not? Or was that season two? He lost early to
it
Troy
was
State, wasn't it?
Louisiana Monroe, wasn't it? Or
It was
one of the
Louisiana
Louisiana
Monroe. Excuse
Monroe
yeah,
me.
and then
yeah,
Utah.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And then Kirby dropped one to a team that they probably shouldn't have lost to. I
We
mean,
lost to Vanderbilt on homecoming.
Yep.
That's what it was. You were at that game with your kid.
Oh, I was at
Do
that
remember you
game.
mentioned that. Yeah. So maybe I would hesitate to push the button on Hugh Freeze quite yet. I get what you mean though, Jesse,
Yeah.
that
I just
there's definitely
they
some pressure there.
well, they're just not patient.
Right.
Like
Well, but I
no
think
one
Hugh
is.
Freeze is a marquee name enough to give them a little bit more patience than you're giving them credit for. Now whether or not they pull the trigger early, who knows?
Do you
Yeah.
have anybody else on your list, or is it more or less different
You
people?
mean
Uh,
other than
and
half of the
Je-
coaches in the SEC that
Jesse
I
pretty much took everybody I was going to talk about. I think if I had to put one name up on the list is probably Billy Napier. I feel like anything less than 6 wins this season is going to result in him getting the can. Because again, we've talked about it. Florida fans are not going to be patient with that.
Right.
They had a couple of really bad losses last season that they had a couple games they probably should have won, but they just kind of petered out there at the end. I think he's like number one on the who's got the hottest seat right now. I think Pittman's probably in a close second, still a couple degrees under that. I think he's going to be another name that's going to be tossed around as someone who could potentially get fired at the end of the season if he doesn't put something together. Um, again, Jesse kind of took everything I was looking at there. I think the other name is Shane Beamer. If you're going to put the three most important or the three hottest seats, I think Shane Beamer is probably another one. Because if you look at his record right now as the head coach at South Carolina, he's 20-18. Okay, if you take away a couple of those big key wins, like beating Clemson, beating Tennessee in 22, beating a couple of teams here and there, there's a chance he has a losing record, and it doesn't look pretty. And they're paying him a ton of money. They're paying him more than they ever paid Steve Spurrier when Steve Spurrier was at Carolina. I just don't know if they're going to put up with that for much longer if he doesn't come up with a couple more key marquee matchup wins to kind of hang his hat on. So if I had to pick my three, it's Billy, Sam, and Shane. And I agree with Jesse. I think there's a lot of eyes on other teams. Another person that we've kind of overlooked, his seat's not hot, but he's definitely somebody who has some really high expectations. Where if things break the wrong way, you could be looking at some trouble. Is Brian Kelly?
That's
There's a lot of pressure on LSU this season to produce a good season and make the playoff. But they're also look at who they lost. Jaden Daniels has gone to the league,
the Heisman
Yeah.
winner.
and they're gonna have to lean on some untested talent. So we're gonna have to see how it pans out. But again, that's another one that you kind of have to keep an eye on, along with Kalen DeBoer, like
Yeah.
Jesse said.
Yeah, I think LSU might be okay just because of Nussmeier. I mean, obviously they lose a little bit of the running side, but he can sling it. So I
He
think they'll
can.
be all right. But in terms of the coaches, I am intrigued by some of the names y'all mentioned. Beamer, I think Beamer's safe for at least another year, unless this one's just like a disaster. I think, obviously last year was below expectation, but the season before, I would say exceeded expectations quite a bit. And I think that that's probably carried over a little bit. So I think he's probably, unless again, there's just some disaster of a season this year, I think his seat's probably safe. And then we'll look to the following season. Um,
We love how
Pittman,
none of us mentioned Vanderbilt, even though they didn't win a conference
The
game.
expectations
There's
are
no
it's
so
all
low
about
for
expectation.
Vanderbilt that it doesn't really make it. Plus, he's how long's Clark Lee been there for? Like
This is
2 years,
I
third
think it's
year.
his third or fourth year. I
Yeah.
can't remember, but
Oh, well, hold on now. If he's been there for 4 years,
well,
and
I
they
mean,
don't
let's
start,
look at how long did they, leave Derek Mason there, and
I
Five.
think I think he got four,
was
but
it
they've only
four?
won three. I think they've only won three SEC
I felt
games in the
like
last three
Mason was
years.
there forever, but maybe not. I don't know.
I mean,
I'll look. I'll look.
the thing
But
is, I think they have to win a conference game
yeah,
this this season.
Yeah.
They didn't last year, so I think that's the threshold.
right. Let's just win a conference game.
Oh,
I mean, that's
Yeah.
where you're at. And I don't know if they play Florida. I'd have to look at the schedule, but they might be able to take that one.
Hey, you never know. Matt, you have the stat?
Sorry, Derek Mason was there for 7 years.
Yeah, I thought
Wow.
he was there for a while.
He
Yeah.
went
So
27-55.
yeah, I mean the James Franklin that era definitely was above and beyond what you would normally see from Vanderbilt. Thus, why he moved on. So, um,
Yeah.
but yeah, for
There's rumors, by the way. I've seen stuff on Twitter about James Franklin getting the boot if they don't start pulling their weight, so to speak, in the Big Ten, because
I can
they
Right.
see that.
haven't really done what they're supposed to
I
do.
mean, they
I
went
mean,
to the Big Ten championship in what, 2016?
yeah,
Then
Uh,
have they been back?
I
I don't
don't think so.
remember,
I'm
but
sorry.
They can't ever beat Michigan and Ohio State in the same
right,
season.
that's the thing. Yeah, but we need more Key and Peele skits. So I mean, that's he needs to stay there. But
By the way, fun fact about Derek Mason: he's currently now the head coach at Middle Tennessee.
yeah, yeah, that's cool. I saw him retweet something about Middle Tennessee the other day. I was like, oh, that's cool. I didn't
He's a
realize he
nice
was
guy.
there. Yeah, it's cool, cool dude. But Sam Pittman, I agree. Sort of the same as we talked about South Carolina a little bit, as far as a couple years ago having a breakthrough year, or at least better than average year, and then last year not meeting expectations, mainly losing those close games. I think we talked about this a week or two ago, where that'll really kind of tell the tale this year too. I think they have got to do better at closing out and winning those close games. But I absolutely agree. Pittman's seat is hot, and if we see another disastrous year or even a subpar year, he may be gone.
And the
Um,
thing for coaches too is that because we're expanding the conference, and it's not like we're expanding it to, a small school or, a school that's on a level of Vanderbilt. We're expanding the conference with Oklahoma and Texas.
right.
There's so much more competition coming
Oh,
in
absolutely.
that now the expectations have only gotten higher. We thought we had reached past a threshold. It's even higher now. There's going to be so much less patience for teams and coaches
Hmm.
because you now have more standards to be held to. It's not
Hmm.
the Tennessee, Alabama, and Georgia's, that you're like, well, those are the standouts, or the LSU's. It's now, oh, all everywhere in the conference is succeeding. So if you're like the one or two that aren't, the
Yeah,
magnifying glass on you just got so
Oh,
much bigger.
absolutely.
yeah.
And a lot of movement within the conference, and nobody wants to be relegated to like a Vanderbilt type status. And
No,
you know what I mean? Where when you think of them, no hate to our Vanderbilt fans if they're listening, but I mean, it's not the typical school you think of as a powerhouse in the SEC, right? So nobody wants that kind of expectation placed on them.
I
And
mean, maybe if it was like
so
1906, maybe, but
yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
God
they
was
were
five.
they were a
yeah,
powerhouse then.
they were.
Um, yeah, they really were.
By the way, guys, I do want to point this out while we were on the subject of firing coaches. It's always fun to kind of know what the buyout looks out like for some of these. Listen, these are going to make your eyes water. Shane Beamer's buyout right now, according to, well, this is as of December of 22. Shane Beamer's is $5.5 million. Okay, that's relatively cheap, I
Yeah.
think.
Right.
When
Yeah.
you're talking buyouts,
Yeah.
especially when you look at what the Texas A&M had to shell out for
Yeah.
Jimbo Fisher. Uh, Going up the list because Shane's at the bottom of this list.
Mm.
If you look at Billy Napier's buyout, take a guess.
You're making me cringe. I'm thinking it's what, upwards of 10, 15. I don't know. Gosh, 20, 30,
No,
50.
39 million.
Oh,
no
39
way.
million.
His
Wow.
buyout's $39 million.
Gosh. Hey, strike
Guys,
when the iron's hot, man, and get yourself a good
I
deal.
got I gotta tell you, I would gladly get fired from my job if you're gonna
No
shell me
doubt.
39 bucks,
Tomorrow.
39 million bucks.
No
Now
doubt.
here's the thing. According to, and this is off Saturday down south, so I'm not sure exactly where they got this info, but there's no info on Lane Kiffin's buyout. I don't think
Mm,
you have to worry about Lane getting fired anytime soon.
Mm-mm.
And there's no information on Vanderbilt's because they're a private school.
mm.
Um, Sam Pittman's buyout is not listed because it's kind of a conditional buyout. So, according to what they've got here, if he's fired without cause, he gets 75% of whatever's left on his contract, which
Okay.
is pretty good.
Yeah.
If he gets fired and the Razorbacks have less than a 500% win percentage, he gets 50% of what he's owed.
Oh,
So,
Mhm.
wow, it's
that's
a
not
built-in
awful.
built-in
But
incentive to do better.
but that is a bit interesting because I'm kind of curious as to what's left on his contract. Let's take a look.
Yeah.
Contract in 2024, base salary of 6 million,
A nice little base.
and yeah,
Yeah,
it's just 6 million. So he'd probably get 3 million if he got canned.
yeah, big
Chump
deal.
change. You better believe the donors can come up with 3 to 5, 6 million, no
Yeah.
problem.
Within an hour.
Oh, no
Yeah.
doubt. No
Yeah.
doubt. And then I absolutely agree. Billy Napier, I think that's kind of a no-brainer given and I hate to say it because I mean you can almost just see the writing on the wall already, just with their
Yeah.
schedule, the way that the
It's
schedule lines
brutal.
up.
It is
They will fire
brutal.
him mid-season.
I don't I don't know how he's going to make it through the season just with the schedule alone. Much less all the other
I
mess that
don't
they've
think he
got
cares
going down
with a
there.
$39 million
True.
buyout. Who
He'd be like, fire me. Let's go. So,
Plus, he can end up falling back on some coordinator position.
For
Like,
sure.
like he's not going to have any
yeah.
issues finding another job in a couple of years. You take a couple of years off, stay hang out with the kids,
Yeah.
and then go find something else to do.
No
Yeah.
doubt. And
Yeah.
then the one name that intrigued me, and I know nobody said that this was a true hot seat, but the DeBoer, Kalen DeBoer, um, you know, all eyes are definitely going to be on him. And if you, in my mind, I'm thinking if there's any kind of like close game, close call first in the first little bit of the season, or if God forbid they lose to a team that they shouldn't lose to, you want to talk about a fandom that's going to panic and
Like
push
a
the
million
panic button.
souls screaming out in pain and then suddenly going silent.
Right. And I mean, you know how and Jesse, you've been there, you know how it is on campus and everything. People are used to things being done a certain way and games going a certain way. And if that happens to go south fast, then there's going to be a panic button pushed.
It's
Um,
because there's so many, and I'll say it. I know for a fact, in the Saban era, there's so many what I'll call new fans. That's not a dig. That's not anything bad.
yeah,
Obviously, people see the success. They're not into college football. They get into college football. They go to the university. They're from a different part of the country, whatever it may be. They become an Alabama fan in the Saban era. It's a very
right.
different era than the one we had prior to it.
Ooh, ain't that
Hmm.
the truth?
Quite different, drastically different places on that emotional continuum. All right. So those of us that are a little bit more seasoned, that grew up being bullied by Auburn fans, we're okay. All right. Like you said, Saban, we lost to Louisiana Monroe. We lost to Utah. And then he was hired in 2007, and then in 2009 we won a natty. That's 2 years. That's insane, but it's 2 years. So I need the Alabama faithful, new and old, um, brand new, hot out the oven, and those of us that are seasoned, remember that we're in a new era. We're in new territory. Even if Saban had stayed, new territory, completely new. College football is changing,
Yeah.
and we're going to have some patience, and we cannot throw the baby out with the bathwater the moment that there's a play call that we don't agree with, because Saban called plays we didn't agree with. All right. So let's all just relax, lower these expectations, and just remember it's all going to be okay. It's all
Right.
okay.
And I
I say
think,
out mid-season, I may be freaking out.
as I say, I think a lot of people they understand that they get the logic of it, but come season time, once the games actually get here, we'll see how people truly respond. So and it may be a moot point. Maybe they'll do great. Maybe he'll continue, and carry the torch and do fabulous. So we'll just have to see what happens. So hopefully Jesse's okay. So
Yeah, I hope so. She just poof disappeared.
yeah. So
By
uh,
the way, Wes, I was just looking at Bama's schedule just for kicks and giggles, and it pains me to see the premier game on Saturday, September 28th, which is Bama at Georgia,
uh-huh.
Georgia at Bama
Right. Yeah, yeah.
is on ABC.
I know. Isn't that crazy? It's the end of an era.
That's
I mean, of course
I really don't like it. I really
yeah.
don't.
And we definitely made fun of the SEC on CBS in its own right because they had their own issues, but it had become a staple and something that we were all used to, and kind of a tradition of its own. So,
Oh.
yeah. All right. Well, I guess now let's just go ahead and get into the interview. We were fortunate to be joined by Cody of On Texas Football. So let's go ahead and get into that. All right. Well, we are super excited to have a very special guest today. We talked about Oklahoma and Texas joining the SEC, how we really needed to hear from some representatives from the fandoms of Oklahoma and Texas. And we are super lucky today to have Cody with us, a Texas fan. Welcome, Cody. What's going on?
Hey guys, thank you so much for having me. I so appreciate it. I'm just sitting here after a long day of work. I'm enjoying my Yingling and my Longhorn
Nice.
koozie, and just winding down for the day. How are you guys? How's your day been?
Cody, I really feel like you should be having a Lone Star. I feel like you're kind of cheating on the state a little bit there.
Or like a Shiner box.
or a Shinerbach, yeah.
There you go.
I
But you
love
can
that
have
you
your
guys
East
know
Coast
all
beer. That's
that.
fine.
Thank you for calling me out, but I do love it. You know, the Shiner and the Lone Star. Absolutely.
Well, it's American. It
It's
could be
one of those,
worse.
yeah, one of those things
Yeah.
when you're in Rome, you do as the Romans do, but I'm in Tennessee, so
Yeah.
we'll talk about that. But yeah,
We're going to definitely put a pin in that. We'll come back to that in a
Right.
moment.
Well, first of all, obviously the different fandoms who are represented, we always ask them, how did you become the fan of the team that you pull for? So how did you become a Texas fan?
yeah, Wes, first of all, Wes, Matt, and Jesse, again, thank you for having me. It's good to meet you guys. And I've watched the podcast. You guys do a fantastic job.
Oh,
And
thank
I've
you.
enjoyed just catching up on some of the stuff that I didn't know before. But seriously, I've sent this out to many of my family and friends and said, you guys got to check them out because they do a great job. So I'm very grateful and honored to be here. But on that question, Wes, as far as me and being a Texas Longhorn fan, born and raised, from the time I can remember, my father would sit down and tell me and my older brother, hey, we don't bleed red, we bleed burnt orange. And it goes through my family. I've got Longhorns in my family. I've got Aggies in my family. The Longhorns outweigh the Aggies, but we do have some of them. So Thanksgiving growing up was always just a really fun time with that tradition of Texas versus A&M. But the Longhorns weighed out, the Aggies, and my great uncle was an aisle ticket usher for 40 plus years. So if we ever went down to the stadium there in Texas, DKR now, but back in the day, if we went down to a game, we would always go by and say hi to Uncle Floyd, and it was always just something that was just a tradition for us to enjoy at down in Austin, because I'm originally from the North Dallas Denton area. So
Gotcha.
yeah, that's what it was always about. Just born and raised that way.
Well, that's awesome. I'm glad you brought up tradition. Obviously, it's even in the name of the podcast, pageantry. We love pageantry. So what are some Texas traditions that we should be aware of, both maybe something that's well known that we've already heard of and remind us of, or maybe something a little more obscure? What you got?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, I'll say what Texas is excited about is, between the hedges or the Grove or, eating some, what is it, Jesse? Is it Moonlight Barbecue there in Tuscaloosa?
Dreamland.
Okay.
Dreamland,
Sorry.
right? Yeah.
I don't mean to step on any toes, but yeah, we're always down to try new barbecue. And so, and Matt, I'm sorry, who are you a fan of?
Tennessee.
Tennessee.
That's,
I don't know
he's,
the
he's
background.
gonna have lots
so
of fun.
Neyland
Exactly.
Stadium. I mean,
yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
There's so many things that Texans are ready to experience within the SEC. But when it comes to traditions, when you come to Austin, number one, well, first and foremost, this is the 100th year of DKR, Darrell K. Royal Stadium. So this is what a wonderful year to open up the SEC at DKR. I mean, it's going to be electric. Texas really likes to set the bar when it comes to entertainment. So I can just imagine, Wes, when Georgia comes to town in October, it is going to be on fire.
For sure.
And so, when it comes to, DKR and Bevo Boulevard, what Chris Del Conte has done for Texas in the past, several years that he's been the athletic director is just, it goes without mentioning how much he has improved the game day atmosphere. That was something that was there and that was almost lost for a few years. And that kind of goes with kind of the lull that Texas went through. It was almost like a little bit of disinterest. You know, guys, Austin is one of those cities that can survive and thrive outside of the University of Texas. And so, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, Austin is bigger than the University of Texas, but Austin really enhances, you know, the experience when Texas is relevant. And so when CDC came, he said, listen, what Texans know Austin to be is it's a place that is a destination spot on Saturdays on game day. And so he kind of restored that. And I shouldn't say he absolutely restored that. And so that's something that if you're a visiting team coming into Austin, like get there in time to experience, you know, the pageantry of, you know, the early morning tailgate, Bevo Boulevard, the food. Like it's like when it comes to the tailgate, you're gonna experience all the Central Texas barbecue and Tex-Mex that you could ever want. And I'm telling you right now, if there's anything that I miss about Texas, it is absolutely the barbecue and the Tex-Mex that's provided there.
I hear you. And you mentioned Bevo. You know, the mascot almost killed Uga a few years ago. I don't know if you remember that.
Was that the Sugar
Oh, yeah.
Bowl?
I think so.
In
Yeah,
what,
yeah, yeah.
21,
They
18?
let the animals meet, and it did not go well. So it was a close call there for a
I,
while.
I don't know who
I'm not
Uga's
going to
handlers
say
were
that
that
animals
day.
have a sixth sense, but
Yeah, that's about
Maybe
how the
that was
game
just
went too.
you know, what we kind of saw was that was a foreshadowing of what was to come that
Oh,
game.
it really was. That was so bad. It was. So you're talking about some of the traditions. So what, and then kind of in that vein, what are like some key like go-to spots? I know you mentioned the Boulevard, but are there any like particular bars or, you know, restaurants or whatever?
Yeah, great question. Number one for me, anytime I'm in Austin, it's Schultz Garden. It's right there by the campus. Check out Schultz Garden. Number two, there's a little bar called Woodrow's, which is kind of just a fun thing to even say, Woodrow's, but it's a little hole in the wall. If you bring a party of like 10 people, you can just take the bar over. So usually like when we go to Texas and my family shows up with like 30 people, we go to Woodrow's. It's like, okay, you guys can do what you want to do. But that's a good spot for locals. But as far as like what you need to experience when you're in Austin, you have to experience a place like Matt's El Rancho. If you like margaritas and you like tacos, right? Come on, Jesse, give me some right there.
I'm like, okay, now I'm in it. I'm not about a lot of
you're
Texas
like
things,
okay,
but
bars, but we're talking about margaritas and we're talking about tacos now. So the margaritas are peerless. The tacos, Asadero tacos, they're world famous. I mean, you can look them up. Asadero tacos at Matt's El Rancho. El Patio is one of my favorite places to stop. So you're talking about just some staples. I mean, of course, you can do like your Franklin's or your Terry Black's barbecue. Interstellar is a great barbecue place. There's fantastic barbecue really anywhere you want to throw a stick. But when it comes to just the average fan going to Austin and just checking out some good, like, hey, I've heard about Tex-Mex. I want to eat some Tex-Mex. Matt's El Rancho, El Patio. Like those are the two spots you got to go to. Schultz Garden is a great bar. So is Woodrow's. I mean, anywhere you want to go downtown near the campus. 6th Street is world famous, guys. Again, the city is so much bigger than the university, so it really offers so much to just even the really the average traveler who may be there just because they want to see Central Texas. So
Right.
check out anywhere in the downtown area. You're going to have a good time.
And I
what I'm
gotta
hearing
ask.
is we need a barbecue guide to the SEC. Number one, that's what we need.
Yes.
I would also say if we're gonna go up against any other conference, regardless that our football's better, I think we have barbecue over everybody. I can't think of any other conference that could like tout barbecue.
Yeah.
I mean, are we going to find barbecue in like Columbus, Ohio, or Eugene, Oregon? Or
if we do, I don't want it.
Right. That's the.
Could you imagine the barbecue in Columbus, Ohio?
Oh,
what are we even doing?
No, it's going to be a no from me.
I
do
mean,
have a question on
yeah,
the one thing about like talking about other conferences. I used to work with the Big Ten conference. And when I went to Big Ten football championship, I just come out of grad school, and it astounded me and honestly kind of horrified me that they didn't dress up for game days, because you come from an SEC school. It's all about pageantry. We're dressing up. I had game day dresses. I did wear jerseys on occasion, but like, boys are in button downs. It's a whole experience. And so when I saw people in just like t-shirts or overalls, I was mildly horrified. Does Texas dress more like the SEC, or what's our game day outfit situation?
So Mac Brown, when he was at Texas, kind of coined the phrase, I believe it was, come early, be loud, stay late, wear orange. Okay. So you'll see a lot of burnt orange, but what is crazy and what I love about going to a game in Texas, and honestly, I think I've seen this, Bryant Denny here in Knoxville and Neyland, I've seen this, but truthfully, there is absolute a reality to God Bless Texas by Little Texas. If you ever heard the song, God Bless Texas, right? Because you'll see a plethora of young women in white cowboy boots and burnt orange, halter tops, the cowgirl hat. And so what mostly you'll see, and what I love, like when I go to any place in public in Knoxville with this hat on, I get stares, because people are like, why is this guy wearing a cowboy hat? When you go to Texas at a game, if you're not wearing a cowboy hat, you're either elderly or you just have never been. So it's pretty cool to see all the cowboy hats in the stand. So it's one of those things where, it's just accepted that, kind of like my background here, we are just Texans, and we want to look Texan. We want to feel Texan, and we want to present Texan when we have a platform before the world.
Right. I live with a Texan. I date a Texan. And if there's one thing I know about them, they are the most prideful people I have ever met.
There's one thing, Jesse, that people say, if you don't know where a Texan is from, give them 10 seconds, they'll tell you.
Oh, if that. if that's them taking a while.
So for people who didn't know, Cody works with On Texas Football, a big media outlet for Texas football. And do they do other things besides? I guess it's just mainly Texas football, right? So
yeah.
Are there other sports in Texas besides football?
Right. Right.
I don't know if you've heard of the Director's Cup, but we do pretty good in that Director's Cup every year. Yeah.
I think didn't the Astros win a world championship in baseball a couple years ago?
Cheated.
Oh wait,
They cheated.
they did cheat. That's right. Never mind. I remember now.
We're just going to spiral on that one.
We are.
The Rangers won last year. We'll
Well,
accept
I was
that
about
one.
to say, you're talking to a Rangers fan.
Okay.
I'm from
Very better.
All right,
so
you're
the
okay,
Astros
Cody.
can
You're
go
okay,
take
Cody.
a hike. The bunch of cheaters they are.
There you go. So about On Texas Football, how did you come to work with them, and what do you typically contribute?
I love it. So basically my background has been in partner success, sales, just kind of that genre for the last several years. And I'm a huge fan of On Texas Football. I watch all the podcasts, really. Orange Bloods, On Texas Football, Texas Unfiltered, Inside. I mean, there's so much coverage for the Texas Longhorns, but I love watching, Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton. And I just, at one point, heard the website or heard the email address when I checked into the website, got on YouTube, heard the email address. Hey, check us out. If you have any questions or if you have any inquiries about any positions here at On Texas Football, I said, hey, I'm going to shoot my resume to Bobby Burton and just say I'm a guy who's been in sales. I'm basically interested in anything with Texas Longhorns, and if there is any position open, here's my resume. And so Bobby called me and just said, hey, we have a couple of ideas for you. We talked about it. It was a really, informal conversation. And, one thing you would get if you ever watched or tuned into any of really the Texas channels, are these guys are just good guys that just love talking football. And Bobby Burton was no different. It was just a really easy conversation of just introducing myself to him, letting him know that, number one, I wasn't in Texas. And he said, don't worry, I'm not either. So that's the remote world we live in, right?
Right.
So there you go.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. So speaking of being remote, what is it like to be a Texas fan living in Knoxville, Tennessee? Because we all want to know.
Great question, Wes. What I'd honestly say is I've been vying for a show. Like I'm trying to put this together called Behind Enemy Lines. Because basically I can't go anywhere. Like if I'm wearing this out in public, I'll tell you, I will not hear the end of we're the real UT, or hey, we're the real Orange, or get that Texas stuff. It's constant, to hear about who's the real Orange, who's the real UT. Anything. It's like a built-in rivalry.
Right.
It is exhausting, isn't it?
It's kind of hilarious, whenever I wear my burnt orange out, it's an immediate conversation starter, and it's always fun. It's always in good fun. People aren't really nasty about it.
So obviously,
Not yet. You just got to the
Yeah, I was about to say
Right.
we don't. Y'all ain't been around that long. No offense.
You're just joining. It's
Yeah,
gonna.
we'll-
Your year could be a little more volatile.
It could be. And,
Well-
and Cody, just to give you some background, me and Jesse are both different fandoms, but we both grew up in Georgia, so we definitely understand what that's like, especially with the Georgia fans that are a lot less. How's the word? Decent, like Wes. Wes is a decent Georgia fan. He's the
Well-
exception, not the rule.
Well, it's funny
I've seen
because
I've seen
Right.
these people bark at small children. Okay, I've seen them bark at small children.
I don't do that. Yeah, I don't do that.
That is accurate.
And it's funny. I live in an international city with military, so I feel. I mean, yes, there are a bunch of Georgia fans here, but there are also a ton of fans of other
Yes, there are.
fandoms. So I kind of get to hear a lot of that too.
Yeah.
So speaking of coming into the SEC, obviously there was another team joining at the same time, and we need your unfiltered thoughts on
This is
Oklahoma.
a safe space. Well,
Yeah,
this is a safe space.
This
The
is a
internet
safe
not.
space.
I
Not
was about to
sure
say,
about
yeah,
the other
you'll
places.
probably get a couple people in the comments when we post this clip on TikTok. So be prepared.
So the key word there, Wes, was unfiltered. Correct?
Unfiltered. Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, first of all,
Don't cuss too much. My mom listens to this show.
no, I don't use much profanity, but I will say screw OU. Secondly, what I'll say honestly is that Texas is lucky and blessed to find themselves entering into the SEC at this particular time. Okay, because if they'd have done this 3 years ago, they would have been a mess. If they would have done this, even 2 years ago, they may have stumbled in. But really what Steve Sarkisian has done is set Texas up to be an SEC contender. Now, that's just to say they're set up. That doesn't mean they will. But as far as OU goes, I really think OU is a year behind. I think that, in my opinion,
We all said that too.
I really think that OU has really got 1 year to how do I say this nicely? Their schedule is brutal.
Yeah,
Okay?
it is tough. It is tough.
Texas got gifted a favorable schedule. Any level-headed Texas fan knows that. We're lucky to have a favorable schedule. We get Georgia at home. Yes, we go to A&M. Yes, we go to Arkansas. But we don't play the LSU. We don't play the Alabama. We don't play Florida at Gainesville. So we get a favorable.
You want to play Florida right now?
Yeah, this is the year to play Florida.
Yeah.
It's a good year.
Yeah.
We were lucky enough to catch Florida at this time, right? So, so I think as far as OU goes, I've maintained that, and this is as objective as I can be. I think their ceiling is 9. I think their basement is 7. I think, and I really think they may be 8 and 4, based on their schedule. I believe that Brent Venables is a good coach. I think that he is going to have some pieces in place. I'm not convinced that Brent Venables is the CEO that like a Bob Stoops that you need at a blue blood program like OU, like Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, Texas, Florida State, USC. You need a CEO. I think Brent Venables is a very good coordinator. I'm still not convinced that he's going to be the long-term answer for head coach at the University of Oklahoma.
The good thing I think too for them coming in this year is it's not quite a pass, but you almost get a pass, right? Because it's, if you don't do super well, it's, well, we just got into a new conference. We're still learning, we're
Right.
trying, our schedule was tough, blah, blah, blah. So you get a little bit of like, okay, we'll give you this year. I think next season, that's when it really starts to come. That's when those boosters start losing all patience. Not to say
Jesse,
that
I think,
they have patience right now, but
yeah, Jesse, I think that's a great point. I will say a lot of this rises and falls on Jackson Arnold. If Jackson Arnold comes out and just, comes out of the gate blazing and has a great, even a good season with promise, I think Brent Venables is fine. But based on the fact that Oklahoma moved on from Dylan Gabriel, placed their hedge and bets on Jackson Arnold, and said, hey, here's where we're going with. This is the future. If Jackson Arnold comes out and is a bust or struggles his way through the season, that seat for Brent Venables is going to be on fire when it comes to next season.
Well,
so I think that's the key.
Jeff Levy, who left Oklahoma and took the Mississippi State job, he seems to think that Arnold's going to have a good year. So we'll see if that is true or not. So
I mean, he did throw 4 picks in the spring game, but who's counting, right?
Right.
As long
a really
as
great
they,
defense. That's what
as long as they drop their home opener SEC game, we'll be fine. I don't want to hear.
There you go.
I need that
Absolutely.
W. Tennessee's hunting for a playoff spot. So, yeah.
That's all the questions I had. Jesse and Matt, did you guys have anything else you'd like to ask Cody?
I have one. I want to know, as a Texas fan, who do you, I guess two, it's a two-parter.
Yeah.
Who do you think is going to be your biggest test this season? And who do you think is going to become a rival?
Dang it, Jesse, you stole my question.
Who I think is just a natural built-in rival is Tennessee. I don't understand how the SEC got it wrong where we couldn't do really and truthfully. I mean, Tennessee and Texas, even beyond football, growing up in Texas history was littered with Tennessee. And we love Tennessee. Like we know it. We were raised to have an affinity for Tennesseans. And it's almost like not only do we love Tennessee, but we want to prove ourselves to Tennessee. So I think that an eventual rival will absolutely be the University of Tennessee. And that goes with the real Orange, the real UT, the ties that, so many people, between Tennessee and Texas are connected. For one, I recruited, my brother, my sister, my mom, all from Texas to come to Tennessee. So we're establishing roots and vice versa. Many people go between the two. Arkansas, to rekindle that rivalry is going to be nuts. We can obviously say A&M. A&M is going to be, Texas A&M and Texas is going to be what it is. But Arkansas, I loved Steve Sarkisian's quote when he said, Arkansas hates Texas more than they love themselves.
That's a great quote.
It's such a great quote because it's so true. And when I was at SEC Media Days, I asked Sam Pittman, I said, hey, Sam, Steve Sarkisian was recently quoted as saying, Arkansas hates Texas more than they love themselves. What's your response to that? And he said a couple things. He goes, but he's right. And just the whole room just kind of laughed because it's like, it's so true. There's so much hatred between Arkansas and Texas. So I'm really excited about that.
That's funny.
Yeah. So Jesse, I'm so sorry. What was the first part of your question?
First one, who is going to be your biggest test this season?
Great. Okay. Obviously, Georgia. Georgia is going, I don't care if, I love that it's at Texas, but that's going to be, that may be at that point what makes or breaks Texas's chance at a college football playoff. I really do think, and this is just my head, not my heart, but I think that we're going to go to Michigan, and I think we're going to squeak out a victory at Ann Arbor. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I think that Michigan's going to try to take the air out of the ball. They're going to run it. But I think that Texas has just enough offensive firepower to score enough to beat Michigan. And at that point, you're looking at Mississippi State, a couple of games we should win, but when Oklahoma and Georgia back to Texas, that is a brutal 14 days. And that right there, it's a toss-up for Oklahoma, and Georgia is going to be a huge test. So how much will Texas have left in the tank? What comes out of that Oklahoma game is always a hard-hitting game. Who's injured? Who's healthy? Who's not? Georgia's coming to town. We'll see. I think that's the hardest test. I've maintained that if Texas can go to A&M, and this is for all my Aggie friends, if Texas can go to A&M with Case McCoy, the other brother, the lesser brother, and beat you, and we're not going to struggle with Quinn Ewers. Just know we're really excited to come back to College Station, just so you all know.
Yeah, don't white out against Georgia. If there's anything I've learned, don't do a blackout, a white. Don't do that.
Don't do fancy things again for big games. Save those for the mid-tier games.
Very bad juju.
It works very small amounts of the time.
Tennessee's checkering Neyland for Florida, and that makes me a little concerned. I guess I'm not gonna lie. But Cody, I got a quick question for you, real quick, and this gets really deep into the fandom. I have to know how you feel about the fact that they changed the name to the Red River Rivalry instead of the Red River Shootout, like it was historically known. So, by all means,
for me, I'm 40 years old, so I've lived enough of a life to know the Red River Shootout and the Red River Rivalry. I miss the Shootout because that is
better name.
That's the epitome of Texas OU. It doesn't matter who's ranked, who's unranked, who's had a losing record so far, who's top 5. When you come to Texas OU, it's going to be a wild ride. Something's going to go crazy, and it is literally who's the last man standing in this shootout. And that's really what it's been and what it always will be. I really think the born and bred Texas or OU fan, the Red River Shootout. But
it's easier to say too.
Absolutely. Just ask Steve Sarkisian.
It's a much better name in my opinion. I know there's some connotations with shootout, but it's like it's like when they changed the name for the Florida Georgia game. It's like it's the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. Just let people
still call it that.
I was gonna say, here's the thing: fans are gonna call it what they want, regardless.
They are.
Ask Brian Denny now that they're trying to pump in like Roll Tide when we sing Dixieland Delight. It doesn't work. The whole stadium still says "F you" to the teams, and you can hear it. It is what it is.
Yeah.
That is one of the traditions that I forgot to mention about Texas. When you hear the Texas fight, it's pretty cool. On the fight song, we mention A&M, and there's a part where we say give them hell, FOU. And so we have 2 parts in our song where we mention both of our top rivals, and we want both of them to know, yes, you're on our mind, and yeah, we hate both of you. So
you gotta love college football.
Great tradition.
That's the big difference between college football, especially in the South, compared to other forms of football. I know that people up there in like New England are like, well, Steelers and Packers, and just it's college football. We know what we're doing. Y'all just sit back and watch. We'll give you your next round of draft picks. We're good.
That's right.
I love it. And I'll tell you this. I think that this year, beyond any year that any of us have ever experienced, is an extremely exciting year. To have the 12-team playoff, which people have been clamoring for years, a playoff. Right, Jesse. It's music to my heart and my soul right now. I'm like, let's go to 16 as soon as we can. Right? I think that it's going to be a season that will never be forgotten. I think that, with the conference realignment, with Texas and OU being added to the most prestigious and the greatest conference, and I think that may be the thing that's lost on a lot of SEC fans, just your average fan. Texas, and I can speak for this because I talk to and I'm involved with a large number of Texas fans from your average to your well invested to your, employed by, Texas is grateful and they are thankful to be a part of the SEC. They know that they're walking into a huge, huge upgrade of just, everything, exposure, of pageantry, of tradition, of power. So we are grateful. We're thankful for it. But we absolutely are coming in to say, we're here, we're going to compete, we're going to step up, and we're going to be a part of, what makes this conference great. We're not going to be a pushover. Now that's not to be arrogant, but it is confident to say we belong here and we're excited to be here with you guys.
I would be shocked if Texas didn't do something confidently. Just in general.
Yeah, being right now the big thing on TikTok right is being demure, and I don't think that word can be used to describe Texas people at all. So,
That's
well,
not easy at
I
all.
for one say welcome to the conference, Cody. We're looking forward.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I do.
Good to
Well,
have y'all. Bring your margaritas and your
There you
Tex
go.
Mex, and we'll make it happen.
And listen,
That's right.
it doesn't matter what you can do, whatever you want, but at the end of the day, it's really important to remember that you hate Florida, and you hate Missouri. That's all I ask of you.
That's all, man.
Well,
Those are my only requirements.
I hate A&M and Auburn and
I got nothing against saying it.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, here's the deal. We love ourselves so much that everything else feels like hate.
So
There you go.
There you go.
There you go.
Quote.
That's
Clip
where you
that
wanna
one,
be,
Wes.
really.
That's a great one. Yeah, it's a
I
great
like that. I like that. Well, Cody, I really appreciate you carving out some time to come on the show with us. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. Before you go, is there any place where can everyone find you on the social medias and whatnot?
Oh,
If you
I
wanna
mean,
plug those.
basically, yeah, I appreciate that, Wes. I'm always at Cody Clearman _ OTF for On Texas Football. I don't really care if people. I'm so like not in with the like social media stuff. I love that I've stumbled upon Pigskins and Pageantry because you guys, like I said, you guys have done a great job. And when I was at SEC Media Days, gosh, man, I met some of the best people in the industry, JD Piquel and Chris Phillips at SEC Unfiltered, and just some really good, like just people who are grinding, and you guys do such a good job at what you're doing. So I commend you. I thank you for the opportunity. Yeah, I mean, if you want to, On Texas Football is a great source to follow anything Texas football related. I'm at, like I said, Cody Clearman _ OTF. Please, feel free. I've already followed these guys. I'm pushing these guys to all my friends. Like, check these guys out. They're doing good stuff. They've got great content. So yeah, this is just it's a great opportunity for me to come on and just share some cool stuff about Texas. And anytime you guys maybe want to laugh or a line or two, let me know.
Well,
Yeah,
Cody,
we have to have you on for Texas, Georgia. That may be
For
the
sure.
top two.
Hey, listen, if we
I'll
end
be
up
there.
with Texas and Georgia playing for the SEC championship, we'll definitely have to bring Cody back on.
Oh yeah.
There
Which
you
is
go.
a possibility that could happen.
Hey,
That's true.
I'll tell you what, if we're in, it's one of those things where I've thought about the SEC championship and I'm like, if we are in a place to make the 12 team, do we want to play in the SEC championship?
Probably not.
Right. For me, I'm almost like,
Probably
let's
not.
take the bye. I know the coach speak would like, oh yes, we want the hardware, but for the fan, I'm like, give them the rest.
Yeah.
As a Bama fan, believe me, you don't need to go to the SEC championship
Right.
to go far.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Yeah. So I'll be in Austin for the Texas Georgia game. I'm going to it. So I'm excited
Nice.
about it. If
Nice.
any of you guys are in Austin that weekend, please like shoot me a text or an email or whatever. Like I'll show you Schultz Garden or, El Patio, Matt's El Rancho. And it's on me. You just let me know. And,
I love
and
it.
I got you. We will take care of you Texas style.
Love
Well,
that.
well, Cody, we can't thank you enough. We'll have to do it again real soon, and appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Guys, thank you so much. Hook 'em.
Thanks, Cody.
All right, well, what a delightful individual, right? I mean, Cody was a great interview, had tons of great information about Texas. I was talking to somebody the other day about having him on the show, and I was like, honestly, I'm just excited to learn because, as Texas joins the conference, I mean, yes, there's some things that about Texas football just from, being around the sport and everything, but there's a lot of things that I'm not aware of, and I was just excited to be able to learn, and he definitely brought it. It was good stuff.
Yeah, it was a fantastic interview. And again, it is exciting to get these teams back in here. Jesse's dying. These teams back in here that we don't really have a whole lot of interactions with. I mean, if I remember correctly, Georgia has a losing record to Texas. Obviously, that's about to change because you're going to start playing each other a lot more often. But I just wanted to throw that out there for you, Wes. I knew you'd appreciate that stat.
Yeah, thank you so much. On the road, yes. So
Yeah, but no, but thanks, Cody, and would definitely, and we said in the interview, if Georgia and Texas end up in the SEC championship, again, Jesse may die if that happens, but if that does happen, we can definitely see about bringing him on and getting his angle on what he thinks about
yeah,
that stuff.
all bets are off this year. Who knows what scenarios we're going to run into? So, yep. All right. Well, that does it for this week's episode. Tons of good stuff, and we are super close to the season starting, so it won't be that much longer now.
It starts
So,
this weekend.
yeah.
Florida State playing Georgia Tech in Ireland.
Yep. So tune into that, and we'll get into the spirit of things right off the bat. So, thanks again to Cody for joining us. Until next time, this is Wes. Go Dogs.
Yeah, I don't have any. I'm just like dying from choking on water. It's fine.
It's okay.
You're not a fish,
Leave
Jesse.
leave you with a roll tide.
Guys, have a great week. You don't have to wait much longer. We're almost there. Go Vols.
And I totally forgot to plug all of our stuff, our email addresses, but the people know. It's fine. Just check it out. Check
Go
out
look
the
at
stuff.
last week's episode. You need to catch up anyway.
Exactly. All right. Catch y'all later.